We welcome four members of the athletic department imperative to the reopening plan: head athletic trainer Erin Cameron, team physician Dr. T-Shawn Lynch, associate athletic director for facilities and event management Steve Westerduin, and assistant athletic director for athletic performance Joe Gilfedder. Appreciate you all being here. Let's start with this. What's the process been like creating policies for your specific roles when there's really no game plan this year?
Yeah, so I think the protocol process has been fun and interesting. A lot of collaboration internally as well as externally. Meetings after meetings, whether it's Patriot League, counterparts, A10 counterparts, and then colleagues within Fordham. So the process has just been a lot of communication, a lot of collaboration, and just trying to get all our ducks in a row.
Yeah, Steve really hit the nail on the head there as far as collaboration and communication. You know, these guys have been rock stars as far as throwing ideas off senior leadership, throwing ideas off of, our sport coaches, our sports medicine staff, as well as facilities and things like that. It's been hugely helpful to me as far as establishing our protocols to make sure we're doing things correctly, we're doing things safely, and hopefully being as successful as we can this fall.
Yeah, Steve and Joe really hit the nail on the head with that one in terms of collaborating and honestly just being creative with your spaces and how you can utilize each other's apartments. So bouncing ideas off Joe and his team and Steve and his team, just trying to make this as seamless as possible in our return to sport.
Yeah, I would say, there's no playbook for this. When we come up with our protocols, we usually have a blueprint or breadcrumbs to help lead us down the path of righteousness to figure out what we need to do. And unfortunately, during this unprecedented time, we really have needed to think outside the box and become creative with our options. And what we know now, we didn't know in May, and what we didn't know in May, we didn't know in March. And so each week it's been learning opportunities, and it's really required us to be able to make mid-air adjustments to our protocols and mid-air adjustments to what we're doing so that we can make sure that we're getting our student athletes back onto campus safely, as well as protecting everyone who is helping to provide them the best student athlete experience.
Erin, from a trainer perspective, what are the most common questions or concerns you've been receiving on a daily basis from the student athletes?
Yeah, the main concerns was just how athletics are going to look like. Even from a athletic training perspective to training and strength conditioning and practices. And specifically in the athletic training room, it's more how is the general operation going to be, and all the way to physicals and concussion testing and just how everything is going to transition as we come back. So we've been involved in also testing with the university, just assisting in their return to campus policies for all students. So that we've been fielding a lot of questions about the testing policy for the university as well.
And Steve, how different is the facilities preparation knowing that this fall is going to be unlike anything we've seen, full emphasis on practices? Any wrinkles there?
It's lucky we don't have too many wrinkles in terms of structure. We're trying to keep things as normal as possible for whatever that means. Outside of that, obviously, we have an abundance of safety precautions and protocol. But in terms of, when student athletes are on the field, we want it to be as normal as possible in terms of the facilities.
Dr. Lynch, what was your reaction to the debate over whether it should be college football this fall? A lot of people going back and forth, and ultimately a lot of the conferences have ended up deciding to suspend the season. What was your reaction to some of that debate?
I'll be honest with you, I wasn't surprised with how the majority of the conferences decided to go in terms of not playing for college football in terms of this fall. I think right now we are unsure of the long-term consequences, particularly of the cardiovascular system of COVID on the student athlete for those who have had it or who might be exposed to it. There's a lot of debate now with some of the Power 5 schools as to which study that you are utilizing to make your decision off of. And if anytime that there's any ambiguity or any gray zone, that should give you a moment to take pause and perhaps either give it more time or perhaps take a pause on the season and maybe come back few months later. I know this is not the result of what our student athletes have been working so hard for, but ultimately at the end of the day, that we're putting their health and their well-being at front.
Joe, we're on the topic of football. You spend a ton of time around the football team. How is the staff preparing and separating the team, for that matter, so it's a safe transition into fall practices?
Well, a lot of the practices are going to be more skill work and individual based. So there won't be these huge 85-player team practices as much. They're going to be broken up into their positional groups and do more indie work. And they'll be able to distance themselves and perform drills that are not going to have that collision that you would normally expect, at a football practice. And they've been hugely helpful as far as scheduling to coincide with our lift time. So we're able to lift, a few of the groups of football while some are out on the field doing individual work and then flip-flop. So that's been hugely helpful as far as the scheduling is concerned, while still being able to get a lot of good skill work on field to make sure that, we're moving the needle forward and actually getting better during the semester.
This one may be for Erin and Dr. Lynch. You look at resuming play after a substantial layoff, and plenty of these athletes have gotten in regimens that have prepared them for this point. But what are some of the orthopedic concerns maybe that come about after you have a layoff and then you're resuming in the fall?
Here, I'll jump in on that one first. So the big thing that we worry about is the reacclimatization back into sporting activities and increasing volume, increasing loads onto a body that has not been doing much. Particularly in this instance, we've had kids who have been off campus since March and have had varying accessibility to different workout gyms, or some have had none, and trying to get them back to be able to perform at a Division I athlete level. We saw back in 2011 when there was the NFL lockout, players were left to their own devices to train and didn't have access to the facility. And when they came back, there was a significant number of soft tissue injuries, particularly of the Achilles tendon. And that's one that we're starting to see now with Major League Baseball as well too, with athletes over the first 30 days, or there's an increased number of soft tissue and elbow injuries that are occurring as well. So the plan that's been put forth by the strength and conditioning, as well as the athletic training, as well as ourselves here, has been looking to get our athletes ramped up appropriately, as opposed to going from 0 miles per hour to 100 miles per hour, so that we can make sure that they are that their body is fully prepared for doing the high intensity, high level training that they're used to doing.
If I could just jump in there too, I mean, he makes a really great point, and we've been working with sports medicine in that regard. We kind of have a protocol, we're going to perform 50% of the volume the first 2 weeks. We'll move to, 70% the next 2 weeks, 80%, 90%, until, 6 to 8 weeks down the road, we've really increased the volume that we're throwing at these athletes. Because like he said, everyone was in a different situation. And first and foremost, we want to make sure that the athletes, are safe coming back. The last thing we want to do is get injured during training. So it's really imperative that we, have a smart approach and not look at it like, oh my God, we lost 5 months of training time with the athletes. We want to make sure we're doing it smart and make sure that we're safely returning to sport.
Erin, you have a lot of one-on-one access as a trainer with the athletes. How is that going to change? How are you preparing for that?
Right. So we've thought about this in a couple of ways, but I think what we're decided to do is use an appointment-based system for our athletic training room operations, just from a rehab, evaluation, and treatment perspective. Due to our smaller space and our table availability, we only have that capability to house 5 student athletes in a short amount of time. So we hope that'll kind of keep things strict, keep things kind of flowing in our room, and still provide a high level of care to our student athletes. From a taping perspective, obviously that'll be a team by team basis. We set up some other areas. Steve and facilities have created a bunch of different options for us, whether that's outside or some other facilities on campus in athletics that we can utilize, so we can house a larger amount of group and still provide our services to our student athletes.
Joe, what did you learn about your colleagues during this entire adjustment? Everything's been adapting on the fly this year. What have you learned about the people you work with?
Well, not that I didn't know this already, but my assistant coaches are the best in the country. You know, it'd be impossible for me to work with 470 plus student athletes by myself. So for them to adapt to, you know, the situation that we have now, and like I kind of alluded to earlier, you know, every single student athlete had a different training situation available to them. You know, some had absolutely nothing and doing all body weight and, you know, exercises versus some people had full gym access. You know, Florida opened up pretty early, so a lot of our Florida student athletes had access to a gym fairly early. So we always tried to create a personalized training system for each athlete based on what they had available to them. And then, you know, between Erin, Steve, Dr. Lynch, you know, everybody's senior leadership at Fordham, you know, they've been absolute rock stars as far as bouncing ideas off of and being able to find best practices for us to set up a successful system for our return. So, you know, I've come up with a lot of bad ideas that got vetoed. I've come up with a few good ideas in which we've put into practice and will hopefully lead to success. But just having that, you know, my coworkers to bounce ideas off of, you know, it really just shows what rock stars they are.
One more for all of you. If there's one individual mantra you would encourage student athletes to keep in mind throughout a limited campus experience this fall, the return to athletics, what would that mantra be?
I'd go ahead and say adaptability. I mean, I think it fits into this time as well as, you know, your future life. You know, as you progress out of college into, you know, quote unquote, the real world, you got to be able to adapt in every situation, whether it's a very serious situation like this, or, you know, on any given moment, just adapting to the situation to make the best of it.
I think I would probably say, you know, like make each day count. You know, there's going to be times when you might get a little bit frustrated. There's going to be times where you don't want to wear the mask. There's going to be times where things might not be the same or the optimal training environment or practice environment, but there's always going to be a way for us to get better. You know, there's always going to be, you know, every single day we're going to be able to take advantage of, get a little bit better, and like I said, move that needle forward a little bit.
I think my mantra would be, we're all in this together. You know, obviously Dr. Lynch mentioned there's no blueprint for our return or anything that's happened since March. You know, in terms of being all this together, every staff member, every student, and every person across this campus is going through this together. So if we take each day by day, we'll be able to get through this together.
I think within chaos, there's opportunity. And I think in this particular instance, everything that's gone on since March, regardless of what your field of practice might be or what your sport is, this allows everyone to become creative with what they have available to them, whether it's virtual learning, whether it's new workout routines because they don't have access to stuff, new techniques out on the football or the soccer field or the baseball or the basketball court. This allows for us to reimagine what we're doing and allow for the student athlete and their students to have a new experience and hopefully a better one in the months to come.
Appreciate you all taking a few minutes. Best of luck this semester and stay safe.